Pineapple Activewear, exclusive to Edgar's and Edgar's Active.
Thank you, Leanne. Now, last night at around 6 o'clock, the entire nation was glued to their TV screens watching the red carpet proceedings at Parliament in Cape Town, all holding our breath to hear President Jacob Zuma's State of the Nation address. So the big question that arises then is, what is the state of the nation? We have with us this morning award-winning radio presenter John Perlman to demystify what happened last night. Good morning, John.
Morning.
Excellent to have you here this morning. Now, I want to start off first by asking you the question because leading up to the State of the Nation address, I was asking most of my friends, young guys like me, are you going to be watching? Are you going to be watching? Most of them said no. What is the importance of the State of the Nation address to young people especially?
Well, I think three things happen in the State of the Nation address. We can leave aside all the statistics and the billions to be spent on this and the thousands done or not done. Three things. What did the government do last year? What is the government planning to do this year? And above all, does the President tell us those two things in a way that fills us with confidence? And that, for me, is how you measure it. The experts, the opposition parties, the newspaper editors will look at it and say, well, he said didn't say that. But what interests me most is what did ordinary South Africans get out of it?
That is truly the most important thing. So let's talk about what transpired yesterday. A great speech that the President gave, I think, with some comic anecdotes here and there that obviously offered some light relief. But let's talk about the serious stuff.
Well, I think one of the problems government has is they're always busy, they're doing stuff. But do they tell us about it in a way that we can make sense of? So I think the President did pretty well in presenting the speech. I think the people who wrote the speech, in my view, did a very, very poor job. And the reason they did that is communication ultimately, and you know this being in the media business, is about storytelling. So they tell us that they've created 365,000 jobs. In another 45 seconds, they could have told us about one person whose life was changed. And suddenly I'm watching and I'm listening, and this thing is real to me. I'll give you another example. They're using Twitter, they're using Facebook, they're inviting us to participate in this process. They tell us about a person called Matseko Pine, who complained about the fact that there's no water in the place where they live, in Hammanskraal, which is only an hour away from Pretoria. Now, what does the President say at the end of it? He says, I will ask the Minister to investigate this problem. Now, do South Africans want to hear that? What we really wanted to hear was, I investigated the problem, the Minister drove out there, or he doesn't even have to drive there, we fixed the pump, the water is flowing, and by the way, Matseko Pine is in the audience with us. Camera picks up Matseko Pine, who is suddenly a celebrity in their community, because not only have they communicated with the President, but they've got things done. They don't seem to get it, that we want to hear about people, we want to hear about lives changing, but above all, we want to hear about action. And for another, literally, 3, 4, 5 minutes in the speech, you can make this thing real. And I think the President's now got to start getting tough with his communicators and say, give me some material I can work with. You're a presenter. You're in the same position. You're going to say to your producer, give me something I can work with.
Let's talk about that because I think you touched on a point that, when you said it, I was thinking about it. Telling the nation what they want to hear versus what is really reality. So maybe the situation was being investigated by the Department of Water Affairs, but what we wanted to hear was that something had actually been done. What's more important, to hear what is really the reality of things or what we want to hear?
You look at your lives in the corporate sector. Let's take a cell phone provider. If you phone a call center and say, my phone doesn't work, and they say, I'll look into it, eventually you're going to change cell phone provider. What you want to hear is, I will fix this by a certain time and I'll get back to you once it's fixed. Now, we can't simply quickly say, oh, well, let's have another government. It doesn't work that way. But I think government has got to use what they are doing. They get so frustrated. And they say, we do so much and people don't appreciate it. And the people that you're talking about at the beginning of your comment, your friends and people you know, they want to hear about action. They want to, and there is action. But then the President gets a speech that is full of numbers that are important, don't get me wrong. But for another 2 sentences, explain to people what those numbers mean. So they're going to spend 300 billion rand on infrastructure. Give some examples of what's going to change. Choose a little village where the train line is going to run and say, this is the village of X, Y, or Z, and this is what is going to be different in 2 years' time. And hold me to it. That's what we want to hear from him.
Now, of course, I think if you were watching the speech yesterday, you will note that the President did also kind of quote a very relevant quote that I think is important in building a sense of community. We're going to play that clip for you right now. Have a look at this.
As we get back to work tomorrow, let us internalize the words of ANC Women's League founding President Charlotte Maxeke, who said in her presidential address to the National Council of African Women, and I quote, "This work is not for yourselves. kill that spirit of self and do not live above your people, but live with them. If you can rise, bring someone with you, unquote. And I thank you.
President Jacob Zuma, during the State of the Nation address that took place last night, just some closing comments from you, John, about what happened.
Well, I think the president ended on a very inspiring note, and he's saying, live with the people, be with the people. I think that my challenge to him would be next time you address us as a nation, because he's speaking to us, he's not speaking to anybody else and anyone in particular, he's speaking to the nation as a whole. Bring us into your speech. Don't just ask us for the odd comment here on Facebook and Twitter. If you're doing something, tell us how it will change lives. If you've done something, share with us 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lives that have actually changed. And then we'll start finding this real, not just words and numbers.
So thank you very much for your efforts. We really, really appreciate it. But as the President did end on a very inspiring note, I think it's important for us to take away that this is about community building. We should take care of one another, kill that spirit of self, and when you do rise up, take someone with you. But it is Guilt-Free Friday today, and we want to find out how you're spoiling yourself this weekend. Kia, how are you spoiling yourself?